All right, what is going on, everyone? Casey Adams here. Welcome back to the Rise of the Young podcast. Today, I'm very excited about our guest. We have Danny, and better known as @SeedPhrase on Twitter, here on the show. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Danny.
Thanks for having me.
So I reached out to you on Twitter just last week, a couple of days ago, because I've been fascinated about this whole NFT space. And I saw on your Twitter, right, you've been in Bitcoin since 2013, and you've had some of the biggest NFT sales with some CryptoPunks that we'll get into. But for people that may not know who you are and what you do, how long have you been in Bitcoin and just this new NFT space? I'd love to hear your thoughts on how long that you've been in that as well.
Yeah, sure. So I got started in 2013. I was at university at the time. I came across a news article that was basically like talking about like the rise in Bitcoin. So I had gone from like, I think $15 to like $40 at the time. It was a BBC article. And, I was procrastinating for my studies. I was studying like psychology at the time. And I just thought this makes so much sense, like this is going to disrupt the whole financial system. So yeah, I just dove down that rabbit hole. I invested, most of my savings at the time, like I was a poor university student. It wasn't that much, like, it wasn't like, what you'd like, associate Danny with these days. Like it was very, very small sum. And, fast forward a few years to like 2017, like, that happened. And basically it allowed me to like basically pursue my interest in like cryptocurrency, blockchain, and everything else. It just got to a point basically where I was like, do I keep studying and like go down the 9 to 5 route with like there's like high expectations of like my parents and friends and things like that, or do I like break away from that and actually make something for myself? And I think, with 2017, like, with the ICO bubble and everything like that, it really helped me, give me that confidence to like, do that and like just break away from that and like really just go full-time crypto. So,
Yeah.
I went full-time crypto, I think like May 2017. At the time, it was pretty difficult. I booked like a one-way trip to Europe, missed my second semester at university. I was just like, I'm done, I'm out, like, see you later. Did terrible in my final like exams and everything as well, just because I just kept thinking about cryptocurrency and how much money I was making at the time too. Like, it was crazy. And then I just got back, to Australia. Had to like decide like where I'm going to like take this, and basically, I gradually like got into like crypto derivatives. Started taking like leveraged positions, long and short. And experienced quite a bit of like success with that. I had heard of CryptoPunks and CryptoKitties like quite early on as well.
Okay.
But I initially like I dismissed them. I was like, with all of these ICOs going on right now, I was like, what is this latest scam? Like, how are they trying to get money right now, right? Like, I was like, there's some kind of like, like it was a trap basically. I was like, I don't trust it. But it really like, I think it took like until like late 2018, early 2019 when I like, came across Axie Infinity on Twitter actually. And I reached out to them because they were having like a land sale at the time.
Okay.
And just to give you some context, Axie Infinity, it's like a pet universe. It's like Pokemon meets Animal Crossing, where you can breed these like little creatures, you can battle them. There's going to be like a whole universe. So there's a world where you can resource harvest like stone, wood, gems, things like that. You can build buildings. So that like really really attracted me, like the whole kind of like play to earn concept of like being able to like make money online, because like who doesn't want to do that, right? Like everyone's trying to do it these days, like with blogs, influencers, you name it. So yeah, I basically just like really saw the potential in that, and I then like really dove into like the Axie universe and got to meet like a lot of people like in the space like during that. And then I think like I started to like look at like elsewhere as well. I was like, okay, this is cool, but what else is out there, right? So that's when like I discovered like CryptoPunks, Mega Cryptopolis, which is like a SimCity building like game, and like a couple of others as well. And I think, like, it's just like, it was a really like, good time. It was a very like, tight knit, small community of like, just like, fellow, similar investors to myself. And then I think, like just the last like few months or so, like it's just been absolutely insane,
Yeah,
and
dude.
that's, yeah, dude, it's just been crazy. So I think, like it has been like quite a short period of time for this to
Yeah.
all happen. Like I wasn't expecting, for example, like $1 million punk sale to happen for like
Yeah, and
years.
I want to talk about that because it's for people that don't know. So I know when I first saw your Twitter, your pinned tweet, you said, "Farewell, my queen," and it
Yeah,
was you selling a CryptoPunk for 550 Ethereum, which is a little over $1 million at the time of the
yeah,
sale. Like, talk to me about that. Like,
yeah.
what price did you buy it at? And for everyone that's asking, like, why is a CryptoPunk so valuable, up to $1 million or even more, for the people that may not know?
Yeah, so basically they were like the OG Ethereum NFTs. So they weren't the first NFTs, but they were kind of like, in my mind anyway, like the first NFTs that started this whole movement, right? So I always just thought like when I discovered punks was that like, no matter how big this space gets, like I think, in the near future, it's going to be like, a multi-trillion-dollar market cap. People are always going to like look back and think like, where did this begin? And they're going to find CryptoPunks, and they're always going to have this kind of like value attached to them. And not
Yep.
only that, but like, they're very like, nice avatars. They can be used maybe in the metaverse as well. And they're also like gaining this kind of like online flex reputation, right? So you can see
Yeah.
someone with a punk and you're like, shit, like what a baller. So like, they're very
Totally.
like identifiable. You're like, wow, okay, that guy means business, right? And then it's also verifiable on the blockchain that that person actually owns that punk. So, and there's only 10,000 of them as well. So they're scarce. There's only like
Yeah.
a limited number. Actually, there's actually 999, wait, 9,999 punks. So one got burnt by OXB1, I think it is.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's kind of like a little bit of, a little bit like a history of like, what punks are. But this punk in particular, I think for me, like meant, it had like a special meaning because I remember buying it for $20,000. So it was 100 Ethereum at the time.
Wow.
Um,
So wait,
and
when did you buy that? Was that in 2018?
I, no, that was only last year. So that was
Wow. 20
last April. I think like last,
2020.
yeah. Was it
Dude.
2020?
Wow.
It's on the history. Yeah. It's either like, I think it was like 2020. I'm pretty sure it was
Okay.
like April 2020 or something.
Was this the
Uh,
first punk you bought?
no.
Okay.
So it basically like I went on like a little bit of like a punk spree, right? So I basically, one of my first punks was my 7 trait. That's now my avatar.
Yeah.
And basically then from there, like I just dove deeper and just tried to like just buy as much as I could. And then there was like this like 0 trait albino female. So arguably the rarest 0 trait you can get because it's a female. Albino is also the rarest skin type as well. And it's a 0 trait. So there's only 8 of them. And she was sitting there for $20,000. I think the seller was thinking, this thing's never going to sell. And the community thought that as well. Like at the time, it was a huge price. Like it was a record breaking price at the time.
Wow.
And that's, when I bought that, I got a little bit of like, slack from the community. People were like started to question like my judgment, were like, who is this guy? Like, does he even know what he's doing?
Yeah.
Um, so I think like that's kind of like why it had like a bit of like more of like a special meaning to me. And I think, like only like what, like 9-10 months later, like being able to sell it for over $1 million, it was like, a bittersweet in a way, but at the same time, it was kind of like, it was sad because it was almost like that was like that chapter closing for me. And I
Yeah.
think that's really reinforced like, the beauty of NFTs is that they do have that kind of like special meaning to people. It's not like, because I come from a typical, finance kind of like, cryptocurrency background
Yep.
where everything I just see as like profit, right? Like how can I extract the most profit out of this trade? Whereas like, I think initially I went into NFTs with that mindset, but now it's like this whole other kind of like, um, feeling involved. It's like, oh my goodness, like, no, this is not just about the money anymore. Like this is about like genuine human, attraction and like being able to connect with these like pieces of art. Like I think it's
Yeah.
like really special, and you don't really get that with
Yeah.
other, asset classes.
So I know, and I know this the answer to this question, but I'd love to hear from you. When people say, oh, a CryptoPunk, I can screenshot it or take a picture of it. People that are just learning about NFTs, right? And I hear this all the time from people that,
Yeah.
I'm new to this. They don't understand like the fundamental blockchain and transparency of ownership. But if someone says to you, like, why would a CryptoPunk be worth $1 million if you can just download it or save the picture? And like, where does the value actually come from? Like, is it just the rarity? Is it the supply and demand? Is it that it was one of the first OG? And then how do you translate to that to like modern NFTs, like ones that are coming out today? Like, do you see it as a bubble? How are you thinking about it as moving in the future? Because like you said, there's so much hype right now that, it's like, what's going to happen next?
Well, I guess like first, I would say we're still early. This very much gives me like early, 2013 Bitcoin vibes, where I could literally mention Bitcoin to anyone. I mean, anyone, and they would have no idea what Bitcoin was, right? Like they would think it's like magical internet money. They would look at me as if like I'm crazy. And I think that's actually kind of like what drew me to like the NFT space was I loved getting that feeling again. It was kind of like that, like really like I got like that like feeling of like almost like it was like that fire inside of me. I was like, wow, I've come across something that's going to change the entire world again, right? And I hadn't really felt that since 2013. So I knew just deep down that I was onto something here. So I think like to people who are like questioning why would you spend $1 million like on a punk, for example, it's because for the fact that I could post a picture of a Rolex right now, right, onto my Twitter, and I could claim that it's mine, but you can't verify that that's my Rolex. Like I could be borrowing a friend's Rolex. I could just be photoshopping a Rolex onto my wrist. There's all sorts of ways that I could like, fake that. Whereas like with a punk, you can't fake it. Like you can verifiably see whether I actually own that punk or not. Yeah. So I think like that is like, the biggest reason, like, why someone can't just like, right click and save a punk, because, I'm going to call you out on it, like if you've got an alien in your, in your like Twitter avatar or something, I'm like, Casey, prove it to me. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I think, with like, fundamentally, I think, a lot of these like earlier NFTs, I think they are going to retain their value. I do believe that like 90% of these projects will probably go to zero. And I think it's going to, and I'm saying zero, not like, 99% or something like with crypto, is because with NFTs, it's a little bit harder because they're super illiquid, right? So as soon as the buying dries up, you're screwed basically. Yeah. And then that is like a downward spiral, because then who wants to buy something that hasn't had a sale for like the last like 3 months or 6 months or 3 years, right? So the thing is like, that's why I've kind of like stuck to, NFTs that I think have lasting value. So that's why I loved punks, right? Yeah. Because I just think like punks are great. They're OG, they're a flex. That's what they've kind of like,
turned into.
Yeah, they've developed into that. And then I love like autoglyphs, because autoglyphs were the first on-chain art. And obviously, that is also very, relevant to like, this blockchain tech as well. People are going to be like, okay, what was like the first on-chain art? And I think that in a way is like very, very historical. So I love that. I love like investing in, OG blue chip artists who have got like lasting power and who could potentially become Picassos, of the modern digital era. So, like people like Pac, Trevor Jones, just like big like artists that you see day to day, I think, are going to be a great bet to like, mid to long term. And then also, the gaming sector as well, right? Like play to earn, I think it's going to be really, really powerful, but that's all very reliant on that network effect. Yep. And Axie Infinity has that right now. They've got like over 20,000 daily players or something like that are playing this game, earning love potions. And I think once their land gameplay has also released as well, you are going to, see a bigger influx of people looking to play into their, like, their universe and being rewarded for like their actions within the game. So, I've seen, on OpenSea about like these crypto cubes and unofficial punks and dunks, what they're called, and all of this other weird stuff. Like, I think like that is like very much like, you know, ICO bubble territory when we're starting to see that. It's just money grabs. I'm not really interested in that because
Yep.
you're literally just gambling with your money, right? And like it will initially probably see some kind of, you know, price rise. But the thing is, like, you're taking a gamble and there's no
Yeah,
guarantee that that's going to happen. And it's really like, who's the last person holding the bag? And I just don't want that in my portfolio.
totally.
And like, I have dabbled here and there with like very small amounts, but it's just not worth the risk for me, you know? So that's just why I just haven't touched any of the newer stuff.
Totally. No, that totally makes sense. And I saw something too that I wanted to point out. I know that, and for everyone that's listening to, I know we connected on Twitter. You said something the other day about International Women's Day, and you said, I plan to invest up to 25 Ether into female artists. And I thought that was like, wow, it's just a not only great thing to do to, you know, give these maybe young female artists some momentum and, you know, you come in as a buyer, but what inspires you to do that? And how often are you currently buying new NFTs or just actively investing into this new economy as an investor?
It's actually funny because I was having this conversation with my girlfriend the other week. She's actually, you know, quite a staunch feminist. And so am I. Like, I believe in, like, you know, equal rights for males and females. So basically, you know, I said to her, like, what's so great about NFTs is that we are starting to see more female representation, right? So, like, I think traditionally in like big tech, especially in crypto, like crypto is the biggest, you know, dude fest. Let's just say that. It's just like 99% dudes. So I just thought like this would be such a great opportunity to like start being a bit more inclusive and to try to like, you know, get more representation from like, you know, from other like genders, from, you know, from other like ethnicities, like, you know, minorities and things like that as well. And I just think like with art, like there's no, like, you know, you're not focusing on like who the person is. It's just whether their art's awesome or not, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm never like looking at the artist thinking like, oh, like, you know, is a man or a woman or whatever they, you know, however they identify. It's more like just like whether you know, that the art sings to me or not. So I just thought like with, you know, International Women's Day, I just thought like this is such a great opportunity to really start like, you know, helping some of these like up and coming females who are like getting into the space and are trying to like break out into like, you know, the broader community. Because we, as we know, it is getting a lot harder
yeah.
with this boom. Everyone's hearing about NFTs. You know, every artist right now is like trying to like just jump on board, trying to sell their art, which is great because like, you know, for years that a lot of them have struggled, and I've heard a lot of like great stories.
Absolutely.
You know, about people who have literally been living like week to week and like taking on debt, like, you know, just trying to like do what they love for so long because they just don't get that recognition that they like for their art or anything like that. So I think it's like fantastic that now that they have like a platform to be able to like express themselves and to be able to be like paid for that as well. And not only like artists, like, you know, in the traditional like, you know, art world, but also like, you know, like music artists and things like that as well. Like being able to like, you know, further like engage and, you know, even like monetize from their audience, people who want that little bit extra from their favorite artists, right?
Yeah.
It's great.
Totally, no, absolutely, and even too, I wanted to bring you up to speed on like how I've thought about it because like I know I talked to you about the beginning. I dove into this space probably 2 months ago or less. One of my good friends, Television, he's an amazing artist. He's worked with a lot of big hip hop, you know, musicians, DJ Khaled and Sway Lee and all these people. And he ended up doing this first collab, and like I said, like he was in the digital animation world, creating like the visual aesthetic for artists when they perform on stage, and like that was his craft. And I interviewed him on the podcast, and this is how it turned into like the collaboration on the NFT. And I saw what he was doing, and he dropped his first NFT with this rapper Chief Keef. It ended up going for a little over 30 grand, and that was the first piece he put out. And like that was like a wow factor, you know, like to see it
Yeah.
firsthand with someone that I've known and like worked with in the past. I was like, that's incredible. And then he dropped another one with this artist Sway Lee. Are you familiar?
No, I haven't heard of
So
him.
this is a really big artist here in America. So he dropped one with him, and that one was doing awesome. And then he dropped a third one like by himself, and then that one sold I think for 18 grand, and like people ended up reposting it, and he's like been gaining this momentum. And
Amazing.
I was like, this is incredible. Like to see someone go from like just creating their first NFT, dabbling in the space, to then gaining like that amount of success. Like it was incredible, and that led us really trying to put together this story about podcasting and the mastermind effect. And you know, we're dropping our, like, as of this recording, my NFT is going live in 30 minutes, And it's just exciting, and I can feel your energy, like, as you're talking about this, being in it for the past 2-3 years, like seeing where it is now. I'm sure you're probably like, wow, I was in this at the perfect time. But like for me, like there's so much energy and excitement around it where I'm excited to tell a story with the art and to be involved. And that leads me to the next question is, how do you see it? Obviously NFTs have gone very viral in like the art world. How are you looking at it from different use cases? I know you brought up music and just art in of itself, but where else can this NFT technology be used, and where do you see it going outside of just this art community?
Yeah, so I think, like it's very applicable to like many industries. I think, what Bitcoin did for finance, I think like NFTs are literally going to do for like everything else, right? Like there's so many like different like applications, and people can get very creative, like how they want to use NFTs. Like I'm particularly excited, maybe like, around like the social aspects of NFTs. So like, proof of attendance, being able to like show off like to your buddies, like, I went to Burning Man 2018 or something, right? Like, having like that digital kind of like, verification that you were actually there.
Yep.
And also like, having that even like, in the metaverse as well. Like, if you attend some kind of like conference or event or like some festival or whatever in the metaverse, like being able to like, show people that you attended that, and like, you were part of like whatever that was. So I think like, that is like an incredibly exciting area that I think is going to get further explored. I think even, sticking to like that social kind of, topic as well, like, celebrities, influencers, I think they're going to think of like, new ways of engagement as well. Like, if you own my, Paris Hilton box or whatever, you're entitled to like, to have a drink with me once a year or something like that.
Yeah.
Or, they're going to get a lot more creative than that, but like,
Yeah.
that's just an example. But, just ways to like socialize and to like engage with your favorite celebrity. And I think, if you can like, pay for it or like, buy whatever like NFT that they're like, spruiking at the time, I think, they are going to try and like, have those kind of like, long-term benefits for those holders as well. So I'm really excited to like see how that evolves, because I think that, that's what, fans want.
Yep.
And they want to be more engaged, like with their, like, their, their like celebrity artist or whoever they're like, looking up to, so I think like that's going to be like a really, really fun way to do it.
That's incredible, man. What is your thoughts on, did you see what happened in like the music space with the artist Blau?
Yes.
So like,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on something like that, right? I know I'm actually working on getting him on the podcast as well, just to talk about this whole story. But like when you see that as, he does a drop, I think he brings in over $11 million, and there's these different tier sets for these different NFTs. Like, is that an example of what you're saying when it comes to like the exclusive benefits of what can come along with the purchase of an NFT?
Totally. And, I've spoken to Justin about this in the past as well, about like different ways that, NFTs have allowed artists like himself to engage like with his audience. And, I think, we are starting to see like, the social aspects take play as well. Right. And I think like that how he even structured that like auction.
So good.
Brilliant, man. Like,
I
it
know.
was cool. Like, I remember like, because like, it was like, I think it was like midday my time. So it was kind of like bad timing, because I thought like, oh, like I'll just place this bid. Like as long as I get gold, I'm happy. I went to lunch and like I felt so rude. I was like looking down at my phone like the whole time, just watching these like numbers, like these
Yeah,
bids
dude.
on millions of dollars. And I was like, I look like such a small fish, like with my like little like, I don't even remember how much it was, like 87,000 or whatever. With my bid, like I ended up getting like a silver, but like I just couldn't believe it at the time. Like he just perfected the whole like, the auction system. And I kind of in a way felt bad for Whale Shark, because really whoever was going to lose at the top there, they were going to end up like, paying a lot of money just for like that gold status, right?
That's what I saw. I was like, the person that paid the 3.6 or whatever it was, and then the second guy, they paid like super close in price, and then the guy below them was like a
So
quarter or like
300,000 or something.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
that's the mind-blowing part. Like that
Yeah.
small fraction of timing and investment is incredible.
Talk about like a bidding battle, right? Because
I
there's like
know.
real consequences to that, because it's like whoever lost that, they were going to get like significantly less, but like pretty much paying like the same price as like platinum. So,
I know.
but I think like how Justin has structured it, like I'll let him talk to you more about this. It's like, I think there will be like, you know, your sort of like your position on the leaderboard will actually like, you know, matter. And yeah, I don't want to say too much,
Got it.
but
That makes
basically,
sense.
he's planning to like, you know, reward people depending on their position as well. So I don't think Whale Shark has really missed out. Like he'll always, you know, have some kind of like first claim to like any gold rewards or whatever. But yeah, like, you know, I think, you know, we're going to see more of that. Absolutely. I think, you know, especially like music artists, like, you know, being able to like share some of their like their unreleased stuff to like a special, you know, a special.
How do you see
circle.
that going? Like, what in a perfect world? Like, I was actually talking with one of my buddies, Futuristic, today, and he's a rapper, and he was talking about like, you know, releasing unreleased music through an NFT. Like, how would you see that happening in a perfect world? Like, if you were to talk to like a rapper or someone in the industry, like, what would you say to them to make them have an epic drop?
Dude, such a brilliant business move, to be honest, because like they do have like a lot of like, you know, unreleased stuff, like, you know, on like
Totally.
USBs or whatnot, right? So I think like for them to be able to like directly sell that like to their like, you know, fans, like, you know, bypassing Spotify and like platforms, I think, you know, it would be like just totally epic. And the thing is, because it's like unreleased, we kind of saw this like with the Wu-Tang album. Remember that? Like it was like a few years ago. You know, and they sold that album for like, I don't know, like $3 million, like the only one or something like that. So I think we're going to start seeing more of that kind of stuff, right? Like we're going to start seeing like bands and artists like starting to release like exclusive stuff, you know, to their fans, like being just a singular song or like a whole album. So I think, you know, it just makes total business sense for them to do it and to also like reward like long-term fans as well, to like actually like be more involved and more engaged and to be able to like, you know, hear some of this like exclusive stuff that like no one else has really heard before, you know. Like I think that's like going to be huge.
Totally. 100%. And all these answers are so incredible, Danny, by the way. And I want to ask you, like, more on a personal perspective, like, where do you think, you know, I'm sure like there's a lot of different platforms out there, the Nifty Gateway, the Super Rare, and all these different places. Like, if someone was just getting into this space, like, what are the couple of like the first steps they should take, in your opinion, to get off to a good start? Because as you know, like the space is blowing up, people are very misinformed, and they want to know like what's the best way to go about this.
I think you need to like, you know, spot the big movers in the space. I think, you know, if you can get traction with like, you know, a big like NFT investor who's that like buys your art or, you know, tweets about your art and really like gets that out into the sphere. Because if you think about it, like a lot of their audience is very much, it's just only like NFT buyers and sellers and people who are interested in NFTs, right? So it's very like direct. So I think, you know, you really want to like get onto Twitter, start engaging like with people's posts, started like connecting, like networking, getting to know as many people as you can. You know, I think, you know, if they don't have the means or like the background, like, you know, professional history to like get onto somewhere like Nifty Gateway or like Super Rare, like it's great for them to start on Rareable. And I think like if their stuff is popular and they do like, you know, a lot of like, you know, good work, like I think it will get picked up. I think, you know, it's just a matter of like really just, like, you know, getting out there, you know, and I think like, you know, if you can also like, you know, get your traditional following. So like if you have been doing this for like a long time, like, you know, we've seen like with people and others, like who've got like millions of like Instagram followers, but they were never really able to like monetize those followers in the past, you know, then they can then like, you know, try and bring them over as well. Like, hey,
Yep.
like, you know, I will educate you about this. This is like, oh, you know, this is going to be like your digital piece if you'd like to
Yeah.
buy it on my Rarible account or Foundation or one of those like other like smaller platforms. And, you know, if once they get like that traction, I don't know what the process is, but, you know, being able to like get onto like Super Rare, obviously you already see like quite a big difference in like the prices, like
Yeah.
something on Rarible, like even though like, you know, that artist has put like a lot of like work into that piece and it's like a beautiful, incredible piece, you know, it's probably going to sell for like a tenth of the price as like, you know,
Yeah.
Rarible. Right? It's just got that like, you know, like almost that, you know, esteem to it now because it's been around for so long. And also like obviously like, you know, Nifty Gateway. So like for me, like my strategy is like I really just shop on Nifty Gateway for like my open editions. And then like my one of ones, like that's just like super rare. But when
Yeah.
I'm like looking to like, you know, support up and coming artists who are like, you know, struggling to like break through, like I do spend that time, like, trying to go through, Foundation, Rarible, and like, other places to try and like spot gems. I found one the other day and I was like, so mind blown by this guy's work. I was like, holy crap, like this stuff's incredible. Like, how's this guy not like bigger,
Yeah.
So, it's just a matter of like, just spotting like value and like, I think like I'm personally like, I really love like animation. I think like as long as like my pieces are animated, um, I, just because it's just, like you couldn't do that before, right? Like with traditional art, it was always still, but like,
Yep.
having like a mural canvas or a Samsung frame, like an animated piece, it's almost like a talking point for like guests and whatnot. And being able to
Absolutely.
like change the mood, like no matter what it is, like if you're doing like a cocktail night or like dinner or whatever. So I really like that. And I think, yeah, it's just a matter of like just getting out there and just
Yeah.
starting to connect and network and just like that, basically, like in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. And last thing before we wrap it up, Danny. First off, I just want to say again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I've learned so much in this, and I'm sure the listeners did as well. And just last thing is like looking to the future of NFTs. Like, what are you most excited about, and where can the people best follow you to learn more about what you're doing? Because you've been in this space, you're always ahead of the curve, and I think you can see things around the corner before a lot of people do, like you've done in the past. So let's end with that.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. Like, really appreciate it. I think, like something that hasn't really like blown up as much. Like, I'm just looking for things that haven't really like exploded in popularity or is being talked about very much, which I think needs more like, attention. Is probably play to earn. I think play to earn is going to be massive. I think it's like, as I mentioned, like who doesn't want to earn money online? I think this is going to really open the gates to like, a lot of people around the world to be able to like earn some kind of like consistent income online, no matter where they are with like a tablet, Android
Yep.
phone, whatever, with an internet connection. So I think play to earn and like, these like in world like game economies, I think are going to be really huge. I think the metaverse still hasn't really blossomed. I think, we're not quite there yet. I think the tech's still quite early, but it's improving, and I think, that's definitely like another like area that needs to, needs people to like, focus on a little bit more. So, I think, watch this space. I think, like there's like, NFTs, I think it's like such a broad umbrella, but there's so many like little like sectors within that, umbrella as well. So just as long as like, you've got like, your head wrapped around everything. And that's kind of like
Yeah.
what I like to do. And just like be diversified. Like I'm just trying to like diversify across everything because I think everything's going to go up, but obviously some sectors are going to like outperform others. Right. But yeah, like, if you want to like, learn more about NFTs, I post about them all the time on my Twitter at seed phrase. And also, Danny, you'll see my 7 trait punk,
Yep.
with the cigarette and the top hat. And yeah, like I don't really have like a website or anything like that,
Love it.
but yeah, just come on Twitter and come share the love and yeah, and learn more about NFTs.
I love it. And I'll make sure to link down everything down below so that people can go check you out, Danny.
Fantastic. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.